Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Legacy Open in Baltimore, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Mill alongside, you all know him, the Esper Professor, Shaheen Soorani. Put her there.
Yeah, sir. Pleasure
My
to be
man,
here. Always,
not playing Esper today.
Yeah, you know, it's a rare occasion. It's not to be celebrated, it's to be mourned. You know,
right.
it's the black was no good in this deck. It was time for me after 5 years of kicking and screaming to finally let go. So here we are.
A quick moment of silence for it. All right, that's good enough.
Good enough.
Now, you wrote about these changes in the Star City Games newsletter a couple weeks back, how you said, you know, the black was good at times, you know, Lingering Souls, Thoughtseize, that kind of stuff was good, but it just hurt the mana too much in a lot of matchups, made you susceptible to Wasteland, and now you kind of got this clean blue-white build that allows you to play a lot more kind of a controlling deck.
Absolutely, and the black, again, I came to this epiphany, and I put this in the newsletter. It's kind of a fun story of, like, I finish a tournament, I go X3, don't make day 2, and lay the deck out, and I say, all right, so let's find out what the black splash is all about, and there's 4 black cards in the deck. I'm like, all right, well, this may be in the deck building era at the time when Tom Martell played it, and I stole the deck from him. It had Vindicate in there, it had Lingering Souls, of course, it had Thoughtseize, it had a plethora of one-ofs in the sideboard. As time has progressed and True Name Nemesis has come out, it's been a real nice, ample replacement to Lingering Souls. It's still, in my opinion, not better than Lingering Souls, because Lingering Souls is so resilient against counter magic, hand disruption, and you're able just to, like, burn it early and then get value out of it again. You know me with my intuition, you know, I love that little package.
Yeah, you got it.
But yeah, that's fantastic. But True Name is has its own special place where you get free wins against a lot of decks. Earlier against Sultai, he had about 20 things in play, and I had a True Name out with a Battle Skull on it, and if it was anything else, the game would have been over. So it was a pretty easy transition from Esper to blue-white just because of the power of True Name Nemesis.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. True Name's so good, but you also have Stoneforge Mystic in the deck that allows you to kind of suit them up with all the equipment, which makes it even better.
Yep.
I think the only part where True Name doesn't kind of stack up is against Liliana, but outside of that, you have a bunch of counter spells and ways to deal with that card.
Right, yeah, Liliana, Golgari Charm, these are things that the decks that have access to black can handle it. But even against the combo decks, turn 3 putting 2 power into play is worse than turn 3 putting 3 power into play from True Name a lot of the times, because it's arguably 4 power with Lingering Souls, but you usually don't have time for the flashback in those really, really high-paced combo deck matchups. So it was actually a pretty sweet transition. I really liked it.
Okay. So we've just got a bunch of Stoneforges and True Names along with the usual suspects you expect to see in the Stoneblade list, but you've kind of upped a lot of the numbers because you have to make up for the black cards you've cut. So we have more counter spells, spell pierces, and then you've even made room for back to basics. Now you, as a person who has complained endlessly about Blood Moon in a lot of formats, kind of sneaking this one in here, huh?
That is a hypocritical addition, I'm not gonna lie. If you can't beat them, join them, right?
Sure.
It's such a grimy card, just like Blood Moon's a grimy card, and it's one of those things where there's a new menace, there's a new hard deck to beat, and that's Eldrazi for fair decks. It is a fair deck sort of, but it's got like Chalice and ridiculously cheap costly creatures, and it just rolls these Stoneblade decks, and it rolls a lot of the fair decks. So back to basics is kind of like the Hail Mary to beat it. Also fantastic against lands, main deck, because game 1 against lands, you're really, really struggling, but with a True Name into a back to basics, you probably can steal a game or two. I lost a 12 post of the last Open with Esper Stoneblade, so back to basics is that you feel a little dirty,
Sure.
But you got to do it. You got to do what you got to do. So it's in there. And without Thoughtseize, like you said, the blue spells are not as good a lot of the time, but they're not significantly worse, so they still get the job done. Winning, as long as you're winning, it doesn't matter. So if you sort of win with a spell pierce, but would dominate with a Thoughtseize, and it's a fine transition time.
Plus, you get the value of your opponent having to, ask a judge if this is in your main deck or not. That
Absolutely.
Kind of thing.
And of course, it catches them off guard because game 1, you just don't play around things like that. Especially when I'm playing in the SCG Tour, people are pretty confident I won't have cards like Blood Moon or Back to Basics in my deck, and it's nice to have a little surprise every now and then.
Other removal, you got Supreme Verdict and Council Judgment, along with Swords of Plowshares, of course. Yep. Supreme Verdict, kind of your sweeper of choice, and then Council Judgment is just your answer to anything.
Yeah, Council Judgment is the proverbial hero's downfall of Legacy. It's just an answer all. When you're playing a control deck, there's not one card that beats you, 2 cards that beat you. In a format like Legacy, there are thousands of cards that beat you. So you need that answer all, and it doesn't target. I used to play the Vindicate from Tom Martell, and I mentioned this also in the newsletter or the article, where the last time I played it was I got misdirected onto my own batter skull, and I'm like, and this is legal at the time, and I'm like, I'll change one card. So it's been really, really good. It just answers planeswalkers, and it's just a beautiful answer to like hexproof creatures and True Name Nemesis in the mirror.
Yeah, opposing True Name Nemesis, you got to have your own answer,
right?
Of course.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look at the sideboard here, where you have your suite of 4 and 5 mana white cards.
Yep.
Gisela. Now you've been raving about this card today.
Card has been so good in testing. It is so mediocre in standard, and it's so good in legacy, because you even read Duke played Baneslayer Angel in his Miracle sideboard back in the day. I don't know if he still does.
Sure.
You might cut it. This is just better than Baneslayer. Once they printed it for 1 less mana in legacy is like half the cost, in the grand scheme of things if you're comparing it to standard.
Sure.
Like turn 5 is really, really tough to be able to do that. This card on turn 4 blocks anything. It carries equipment obviously very well. It has lifelink, which is a huge bonus. And it's one of those cards where if they're not playing Lightning Bolt, you bring it in. Like against Sultai, they have a Maelstrom Pulse maybe. You bring it in against those Chalice decks. Of course, it gets around that. It's an evasion creature to come in with the moat. So it's one of those cards that is sneaky good. Okay, so it's trust me, give it a shot, and you'll be really pleased with it.
Sure, you didn't want to kind of work in a Bruna in here as well?
Yeah, that's a joke. I mean, might as well. I mean, I used to play Teleman's Performance, which is basically Bruna costed. But again, when you start losing to the same deck over and over and over, you got to take a seat back and you got to say, what can I put in this deck to beat it? And Bruna's been the answer to a lot of the Eldrazi creatures, because again, the lifelink and the swinging is really, really good, and it blocks well, just like Teleman's Performance was the answer to the lands players, who now play 4 Tireless Tracker in their deck. So Jarvis Yu and Daryl Ayers and all the other lands players, they've caught the tater. They got
one step ahead.
They got me. It took them a little bit. They got a little bit of a beating before they came around. So now they're around, and now they can avoid that.
I believe at the last GP I was at, there were lands players playing Phage in their sideboard, so that they could get you when you tried that.
The big lands player in the SCG Tour, and I cannot remember his name to save my life. Is it I can't remember.
David Long?
It might be David Long. It might be David Long, but they was walking. It was David Long. It was David Long. So he was sitting around with the other lands players, not because lands players hang out, but just because we're all together. And he said that you come back with a Teleman's Performance, I'll be back with a Phage. So you have that happen to you once, that's good enough.
Of course, you had Moat, which is kind of a package deal with that. Then you have Nahiri. Not the new one, of course. We have the old school one from the Commander product, just another value card that goes along with Stoneforge Mystic.
It's the fourth Jace the Mind Sculptor against grindy matchups. I actually ran a Jace out there to get countered in order to play Nahiri, because it was a bigger impact on the board. He already countered my Jitte from earlier, and I Batter Skull in my hand, so the ability to put equipment from your graveyard or hand, it allows you not to play a really terrible Academy Ruins, which is just not good. So this card is one of those grindy matchup cards that has that added bonus to it.
Sure. Now we have a bunch of, kind of more replicate cards of things you already have in your deck, more Supreme Verdicts, more counter spells in the form of Blue Blast, Flusterstorm, and other back to basics.
Yep.
Then we have kind of the hate cards here. We got Rest in Peace, Containment Priest, and Meddling Mage here along with the Disenchant.
Right, and Rest in Peace is a 3 of, and there's a lot of people on I haven't got a chance to answer the article questions. I've been really busy, but we'll get to this weekend. They've been asking why not play Surgical over Rest in Peace, and Surgical is like a Band-Aid on the matchup. They can play around it. It doesn't hit Punching Fire most of the time. Lands just laughs at it. And even Dredge decks can really play around it, but Rest in Peace is a hard lock.
Yeah.
And you don't ever want to split those up either. I saw that question as well, because you want to be able to play a second one to back you up against Abrupt Decays and other enchantment removal. So Rest in Peace is like the pinnacle sideboard card for this deck, and don't ever cut that card from the sideboard.
Surgical, more of a combo deck, or a deck that can win fast.
Right.
What kind of wants that option as opposed to this?
Absolutely. Or get your card if you know what they have in their hand somehow and be able to get it. So
Priest here, go against the deck's cheating and creatures, things natural order, that sort. Meddling Mage. What are you naming mostly with that?
Meddling Mage has been very medium for me because I haven't played against combo decks today, really. So, but it just comes in against all the combo decks. I brought it against Miracles twice. Against Miracles, you name whatever piece they're missing, And the best part about playing Stoneblade with True Name Nemesis is that a lot of the spot removal comes out. No one can leave in 4 Sword of Plowshares against just Stoneforge missing. That's their only target. So a lot of them board those cards out, and then Meddling Mage allows you to take advantage of that. So a lot of times, I played against Mono Red, the Prison style deck, and I named Imperial Recruiter, which got him pretty good. Just because I had a feeling he had some. He did. So it's just a card that I bring in when they bring out the removal and being able to take advantage of that.
Okay, so going forward, you believe blue-white is the way to go. Is there anything that can change meta shift that would make you want to try to bring black back into this deck, or are you kind of just like looking forward with this build?
I think Eldrazi would have to fall off real bad because the black was actually, Thought Season, those cards are very bad against Eldrazi. They Chalice, for one, you just don't want more 1-mana spells in your deck. The blue counter magic, like I said, is doing the job that black does, and I was so sick of losing with my basic swamp in play, and just like, it's so bad, and you're just, every time you're looking down, you're like, why am I playing the black splash? The problem was the same thing that Mike Flores told me. He's like, when are you gonna put this deck down? And I told him, once I start getting creamed with it. So for 5 years, I've been kind of, coasting on the Esper Stoneblade. And then last tournament, I got creamed, and I was good enough. One tournament getting creamed, done.
All right.
Blue-white has been operating a lot better in testing and in tournament play, so I don't see myself going back anytime soon.
Esper Stoneblade, what have you done for me lately?
Yes.
We're moving to blue-white.
Absolutely.
Shaheen, thanks for joining me here in the Sideboard.
Appreciate
Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action in Baltimore.